Okay, so good morning, everybody. Really good to have you with us today. What we're going to be talking about today is understanding business apprenticeships and how you can use them in your business. My name is Suzanne Hodnett. I am head of marketing at Swarm Training, but I've also been a dedicated apprenticeship tutor here for many years, teaching marketing, market research, business improvement, those kind of things. But I'll be acting as chair today to guide you through the apprenticeship system with our panel and how it can work for your business. So to set the scene, we are going to be talking about basically how to strengthen businesses across the UK, large corporates as well as SMEs, building strong and effective teams. And a huge part of that, as you know, is supporting the acquisition of new talent, but also the nurturing of that talent. So what we're looking for as employers and business owners, and I've speak as having been one myself, is we're looking for long and fruitful employer-employee relationships, but also sustainable, reliable business talent with real sort of depth and breadth to it. So this is where apprenticeships come in. Our panel is here to help you understand what they are, how they work, how you can harness them in practice to gather talent for your business. I'd just like to ask each of our panel members to take a minute just to introduce themselves. We are short of Martin Morrell at the moment, but he's just been called into an urgent meeting, so he's going to be with us about 10:30, which is fine in time for his piece. So I'll introduce him for you. But first things first, Chris, you're going to be first on the agenda. Would you like to just introduce yourself?
Yes, I can. Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Perry, and I am the chairman of the Swarm Group of Organisations.
Fantastic, thank you. Rachel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Hello, everybody. I'm Rachel Lawrence. I've set up a marketing business called RL Creative Studios, helping businesses to boost brand awareness on digital platforms.
But the main thing, Rachel, is you were an apprentice, weren't you? You were a marketing executive apprentice.
I used to be an apprentice, and then I started doing this after my apprenticeship ended.
Fantastic, thank you. Olivia, would you introduce yourself?
Morning, everyone. Yeah, so I'm Olivia. I am currently an apprentice. I work at IFF Research. So I'm doing a market research apprenticeship.
Fantastic, thank you. And Martin Morrell, who's going to be joining us, he is head of learning and development and Anglian Home Improvements. They have been involved in employing apprentices for many years, and he's going to talk you through how that works really well for them actually as an employer. Okay, so Chris, if I'm just going to stop presenting these and move over to your slides.
Thank you, excellent. Right, so yes, so good morning, everybody. So this week, obviously, it's National Apprenticeships Week, and every year this happens, and every year we all promote the benefits of apprenticeships to, well, basically the wider world in the UK PLC. This year is a bit of extra special because it marks that 10 years since we've been sort of delivering apprenticeship training. So it's definitely an interesting year for us. So Swarm training has been going for quite a while, and for that 10 years we have delivered all sorts of from humble beginnings of only delivering 1 or 2 standards in apprenticeships that were in business admin or enterprise, to now we deliver way over 30 business apprenticeships. We also do a little bit of engineering, but that's over here in Norfolk, and we have 6 to 7 engineering standards here in our own dedicated engineering centre. The Swarm Training is a non-profit organisation. It's a CIC that is limited by guarantee. And what that means is I wanted to set that up as that because I wanted to make sure that no government funding or funding that's to do with education goes to the back pocket of any shareholders. So it was vital then to make sure that all the money goes back into the delivery and the educational journey for everybody involved. So it's a key thing, is obviously we are, you know, as close to being a charity as you possibly can get without being a charity. Next slide, please, Suzanne. So business apprenticeships are delivered nowadays, since the post-pandemic kind of, are always sort of delivered very much from a remote point of view. There can be various different methods, and at the moment we are delivering anything from sort of marketing all the way up through to business improvement, accounts, you name it, and all of those are delivered in a very similar way. everyone gets a designated tutor, and that is an individual tutor that has relevant and high level market experience within that business discipline. So if you're doing, say, market research or marketing, you would have a designated market research or marketing tutor who has a historical background in a high level within that sector, and they will work with the apprentice one-to-one. Now, with that one-to-one, it could last anything from a couple of hours through to a sort of 4 or 5 hour session, depending on what's happening on the scheme of work. That will be mixed also with, we do tend to have a lot of them delivered through what we call group sessions as well. So we tend to have a lot of peer-to-peer delivery happening where, for instance, especially with our market research or marketing, where many apprentices will come together and work together in a group of teaching, which is really great. And that's fantastic to have that sort of peer-to-peer working groups that happen. Every 12 weeks afterwards, there is what we call a progress review, and that progress review is a time for the employer and the apprentice and the provider like us to be able to come together and say, how is everything going? Look at the progress of the apprentice, just see how they're getting on within their job, how they're getting on with what they're doing with their off-the-job hours, and how they're working towards this thing called endpoint assessment, which I'll explain in a bit. But that is something that's really key, and I absolutely say one of the biggest things when it comes to businesses taking on an apprentice or even upskilling an existing person in their company to do training in an apprenticeship is to make sure that you've got that time to at least be involved with that 12-week review, because it's absolutely key that you understand any barriers to learning, what's happening, and how we can help together to support the apprentice to move forward. So our job is to set tasks each month to grow the apprentice's portfolio of evidence to us to submit at the end to say they are competent, they match and have the knowledge, skills and behaviours that are required, that are industry relevant for them to become a marketing executive, or whether it's a market research executive or an accountant. And that is our job, is to basically make sure they reach the accredited national level. So we have to build the portfolio of evidence with them to make sure that they can sort of show that at the end when they get to this thing called endpoint assessment. So when we get to that point, it's called gateway. And as you can see there, it says gateway to assessment. Now, each different course will have a very different duration. The minimum duration is 12 months currently. There is some talk at government that they have reduced that to 8 months, but that will only be for certain standards and starting in August. So at the moment, the minimum duration of any apprenticeship level, regardless of whether it's a level 2 or level 7, is 12 months. On average, most of ours tend to last between 14 and 16 months, depending on sort of how they're getting on with progress and how long it takes for them to get through any of the other requirements we've had. But you can get through pretty quickly, depending on obviously how much is available within the work for them to do. Assessments will vary, and we are very big on what we would call holistic delivery, wherefore we will get various different types of assessment from someone to show whether they've got the knowledge, skills and behaviours to do what they can do, whether it's video evidence, photographic, witness testimonies, projects, and all of that contributes to what we would call the off-the-job learning. Now, as part of the funding for apprenticeships, they have to attend a certain amount of off-the-job learning per week, and it's stated roughly about 6 hours a week. And now that means roughly we would say dedicate about a day to someone to be able to kind of do some projects, work on the working. That does mean that's in the job, so they don't have to be at home to do that. They can still be at their site and or at their desk. And that's there's a whole wide swathe of things that class as off-the-job learning, but we just normally recommend giving them about 6 hours a week just to focus on getting that knowledge in, learning their job, learning the apprenticeship, and learning the knowledge, skills and behaviours required. Once they've got to gateway, so which is the end of it, where we say, right, this person they've got everything together, they've done a mock test, we think they are ready to sit this thing called endpoint assessment. And that endpoint assessment is completely separate from us. It's an external organisation that will assess that apprentice on various different methods, normally between 3 or 4 different types of assessment, who will then give them a pass, merit, or a distinction grade, or fail. Which obviously means that because it's our job to get them there, we have no bearing in what they can get at the end. Glad to say that we have a 98% pass rate, so chances are, come with us, you'll pass. Next slide, please, Suzanne. So historically, and I'm going to use the word historically because it literally changed this morning. Apprentices had to finish maths and English along with their main apprenticeship, whether it be business administration or marketing or whichever, if they didn't already have what in the old world was accredited to an A to C in maths and English, or level 2 is what we would say. Now, as from this morning, they changed the rules now that anyone over 18 does not have to do maths and English in an apprenticeship at all. So this is almost ground shaking in our industry, because for years it has been a huge barrier for anyone doing an apprenticeship, especially if you don't want to do maths and English as part of it, because you know, crikey, I've done an apprenticeship before and I hated doing it, and I didn't want to do my maths and English because I'm horribly dyslexic and I hated it. So they have now removed that barrier, and that means for us it's a fantastic thing, because it means that the great majority of our apprentices are over 18. In fact, I would say 3/4 of our apprentices are way over 18. So for us, it's removed a significant barrier that starts the whole course sometimes negatively, because people don't want to do it, even though the apprenticeship itself is fantastic and the vocational part is brilliant. They didn't want to do the maths and English. However, if you're 16 to 18 and you haven't been able to achieve those grades, we will help them achieve it by the end of the apprenticeship. But that's really going to be a small number of apprentices versus the current number of business apprentices. A great number of our apprentices are coming out of school with the required grades now. So this one now is less relevant than it used to be, so we can move on brilliantly. As people go through an apprenticeship, whether doesn't matter what discipline they choose to do, out of the 30 odd that we do, or the hundreds and thousands that are out there at the moment on the Institute of Apprenticeships, every government-funded apprenticeship, albeit whether it's levy funded or funded by the DFE, is classed as an educational program. Now that means that because it is an educational program, the Department of Education have certain stipulations of what that means. For us, it basically means that we are a giant school, and as that point of view is we have to deliver everything a school delivers in the educational journey of a young person, which means we are governed by Ofsted. We get inspected, and as part of that, we have to deliver other elements of education as part of the journey of an apprenticeship. And as part of that, you'll see the list in front of us of the extra things that we deliver and support the apprentice with throughout their journey. So prevent and safeguarding they are key. In the world we live in today, with extremism as it is, and across all avenues, it is our duty of care from the UK government to make sure that we and our employers and our learners especially understand what the prevent is. And I won't go into it now, but it is a key thing, and it will and definitely does apply to everyone in the workplace. Safeguarding is a limiting factor, and we have to make sure all of our learners are living and working in a safe environment and are safe and know who they can talk to. It's a big element of what we do. That's both personally and obviously where they're working. Conflict and resilience is another system that we deliver and teach throughout, and you'll see there's a great big list there of lots of workshops, systems and sessions that we deliver that help build the mind and the person as well as the academic. We've recently had many people say, I didn't realize when I came here I was going to be a marketer, but I didn't realize I was going to come away a better person, or come away and understanding now what better relationships are. It sounds like, you know, it's a bit nanny state and a bit crazy if you come purely from a commercial point of view, but don't underestimate the impact that some of this stuff can have on what we would call the soft skills. we're involved in these things called the LSIP, and the LSIP is basically across the country groups of organisations and stakeholders that come together to look at what are the regional skills needs. And soft skills have been rated the top across the country of the needs for young people and people in employment. And this is where this comes in: the soft skill development, the getting someone to understand the relevance of getting up in the morning, getting to work, and building that resilience of being work ready. So we add a lot in, a huge amount of what I would call the extended curriculum, which means that it's huge, great value. Okay, next slide, please, Suzanne. So there are lots and lots of different apprenticeships, and they're all called apprenticeship standards. The place to look for them at the moment, if you're not going to look for them on our website, is the IFATE, which is the I'm not going to go into the long name of it, but you'll see there it's the Institute for Apprenticeships. And that currently, and I say currently because it is going to be changing to Skills England in the next sort of 12 months. But basically, there is one place where you can look and search for the types of apprenticeships that may benefit your person in the company that you've already, the individual you've already got, or may benefit something you want to bring in. And that is a key point. Apprenticeships are not just for people who are coming into your business new. You can upskill your existing workforce and develop them by putting them also on a government-funded apprenticeship. It's a fantastic way to upskill your workforce and use the government funding to be able to support to do that. So this website is a really good way for you to look to see how you can do that and what's available out there for you to put that person on something to help really develop them. Now, the big caveat with that is you cannot teach them something they're already doing. That would be bonkers. We are held for a very high account on making sure we're recruiting with integrity, and we won't put people on a course if they've been doing it for 5-6 years, because there's no point. If they, however, could do with going through lots of leadership and management, or if you've got any people that want to develop into leadership or management or team leading, that's a great one. We do a lot of those, and it's a fantastic opportunity to develop people. So there's a huge amount on offer, and at the moment, if you don't pay into the levy, you only have a 5% fee. Now it's called 5% a contribution towards the apprenticeship. If you consider that a business administrator apprenticeship is £5,000 across the whole duration of about 12 months, so you'd be only expected to pay 5% of that over the course of the duration as well. So I think we're talking about £250 contribution towards the training, which you can pay over 12 months. So it's actually a very, very small amount. If you are a levy payer, of course, it just comes out of the DFE levy pot that you contribute towards. Or if you are a non-levy company, there are many, many big companies out there that are giving away their levy pots, so you don't have to pay that 5%. But I will say a very unpopular thing. But if that 5% becomes a barrier for you to decide whether you can or cannot take on an apprentice, then my thing would be to say, don't take on an apprentice. And that's just, I know a lot of my guys will be absolutely with that, because if £250 is a barrier for you to take someone on, we would say don't do it, not until you're a bit more financially secure, because an apprentice is your employee. It's someone that you're going to invest in. You're going to invest in time, effort, money to get this person to deliver for you the impact and return on investment. And that is just no different than anyone else. So if you're going to invest for sort of a small amount of money for their development, and that's a barrier, then just please don't do it. Right, so moving on. So as I've already said, there are two sort of separate funding streams. There is the levy versus non-levy. Now, you'll know if you're a levy payer because it means that you've got a pay bill of several million. So if you're a small company and don't have a PAYE bill of several million, chances are you are a non-levy company. And that's fine. It's brilliant, because basically you're tapping into 95% government funding to pay for the training course for that individual. And that could be for any age. We've got apprentices age 16, and we've got people age up to 50 to nearly 60. There are no age limits for apprentices, and apprenticeship is literally for anyone who is learning on the job. That's all it means. It doesn't mean anything else, although they're not just for companies who are, you know, delivering in trades or engineering. They are for anybody. We've got apprenticeships up to level 6 degree level. We've got apprenticeships down to level 2 in a wide range of sectors. Fantastic professional sectors, which are, you know, back in the day when I was at school, I would have killed to have the opportunities now that young people have to get into the sectors that we can now as apprenticeships. The biggest thing out of all of this is that you still pay their wage. And that's really important. It's an employee. They are treated the same. They've got the same rights as everyone else. So again, if you can't afford to take on an apprentice and you can't afford to take on an employee, don't do it. Yes, you can pay an apprenticeship less. I don't normally recommend it because if you advertise for an apprentice and at a really low rate, then you're not going to get a great, fantastic applicant. It's just simple as that. We'd normally recommend going for the minimum wage as possible, just to try and get the best possible applicants. And one of my colleagues here, Paul Widdick, he runs the company that we use, Swarm Recruitment, who will do the recruitment for apprentices. And absolutely the biggest thing is the better the wage that you can offer at the beginning, the more variety of applicants that you will have to be able to put them onto that apprenticeship. Next slide, please. So the apprenticeship is a triune partnership, okay, and that's between yourselves as the employer and the learner. And it is absolutely key that we work together, both provider and employer, to make sure that we can develop that individual. Our job is to develop the industry standard skills and knowledge that are required for that person to be able to sort of get through to the end. We can't teach them their job because that's your job as the employer. So when it comes to applying that knowledge and that skill, your job then is to help them do that. You know, we can't magic up things for them to be able to do so they could actually apply that bit of knowledge. There are times when standards have been built for that are very, very wide, and there are elements that you may not be able to do. And we've got elements in of course, market research where you may be doing a whole of quantitative research and actually don't deal of qualitative. So we may have to support the employer with simulating that and finding a way to say, well, if you could do it, how would you do it? That's absolutely fine, as long as it's the exception and not the rule. So it's really important that when you choose an apprenticeship, it's something that you know that apprentice can absolutely apply in their job. And making sure that they have someone who they can report to, who can work with them and support them. It doesn't have to be face to face. It can be remote. It doesn't matter. We've had lots and lots of apprentices work remotely, but as long as they've got someone who they can work with, who is their mentor, that can support them, then that's really key. This is why now, when it comes to things like whether you're a small businesses or one-man band and taking an apprentice, yes, you can, as long as you have the skills yourself as the one-man band to help develop that individual, and have enough knowledge within the area that you choose to be able to answer any questions on its application within their actual job, then that's really key as well. We've had quite a lot where companies go, oh, we need a business improvement person, or we need someone to be able to do this in our company, so we'll take on an apprentice to do it, thinking that actually that they'd be able to learn all those knowledges and skills from someone else and just come in and apply it in their job. That's not how it works, unfortunately, because unless they have the ability to actually put it into practice in there and work with someone within the company, then it won't work. Throughout the last since 2017, when they rolled out these apprenticeship standards, they brought out a thing called level 7 apprenticeships, where they were doing sort of very senior leaderships that involved an MBA as part of it. And a lot of employers were putting their sort of middle management onto what we would consider as senior director level apprenticeships that involved, an MBA at university. And although that sounds fantastic because it was government funded, the reality was none of those apprentices were able to actually apply that knowledge and skill because none of them were director level. None of them were able to actually do it. So it was really just a way of using government funding to fund an MBA, which sounds great, but actually doesn't really promote the spirit of what an apprenticeship is all about. So I will always emphasize, make sure that that person can apply what it is that they're able, what you're choosing to do as an apprenticeship. Don't have it as a wish list. There are other options of out there for you to develop those skills for individuals once you've got them. Everyone has access to an e-portfolio system. We use that called OneFile, and you yourselves will also have access to that as an employer. And they will be able to sort of give you access to that when they're going through their sort of progress reviews. You'll be able to see what's going on, and you'll be shown how they're getting on. Or you can access it sort of whenever you like to see how they're getting on, and sort of looking at anything that you would see fit, really. You will also get a dedicated account manager who works with you as an employer. So Louis runs a team of people who literally their job is to work with you as an employer, support you with any barriers to learning, anything that's happening out there in the industry, support anything to do with funding, and just really help you maximize the benefits of developing your workforce. Next slide, please, Suzanne. So this is pretty straightforward, really. So to roll to get whether it's an existing apprentice or whether it's a new one, our job is to make it really, really easy for you. We pretty much do everything. Because of the systems that we have here at Swarm, we have a dedicated recruitment company and a training company. And our job here is to say, right, we will work with you. We'll say, well, what is it you want? We will talk through what skills, knowledge, and behaviors you might need. And Louis and the team will really get to know and understand your training needs. Once you've kind of worked that all out and you've understood a kind of a blueprint of whether you're going to upskill an individual and what skills they need to learn and what is it you want, or whether you're going to want to recruit somebody. If you want to recruit someone, we will then get you to work with our sister company, Swarm Recruitment, and their job is to work with you to find somebody. They are a proper recruitment company. They are a commercial recruitment company. They have loads of experience, decades of experience in recruitment, and they apply the same kind of level of commercial skill and expertise that you would normally pay a lot of money for in recruitment, but they do it for free for apprentices. So they have an extremely high success rate, very high success rate when it comes to getting apprentices into a position. And because it's not just advertised on one place on the DFE website, you will get a very big variety of applicants ranging from all ages and graduates, you name it, for you to be able to work with them to get on the best person for the job. So they will do all that. They'll help you write it, they'll advertise it, they'll pre-select, pre-sift, and get and organize interviews for you. So we will support you through everything. Your job is really to make sure that apprentice can be in, and then our job then is to work with you and every month and support and deliver the training and get them through to the end where they're delivering a really good return on investment for you. I think that's it, isn't it, Suzanne?
Great, thanks, Chris. Yeah, that was really good. There's so much information there. So what I'd like to do now is to open it to the floor for any questions. We've got some questions that we've been given in advance. I think people couldn't make it. So, but I'd like anybody here who's got any questions, please feel free to just speak out, or you can type it into the chat if you'd like to. But while you're sort of gathering your thoughts on that, Louis, do you want to sort of start with any of the questions? I think some of them Chris has already answered on our list, but if you want to ask any of the others.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I don't think you touched on this, Chris, but some of the sort of questions that come in. So can the employer build in a probationary period to an apprenticeship contract?
Yes, because they are an apprentice by law, they are an employee by law. So the current employee laws come into play. The only thing I would say with that is that it's very different because you have someone working with you to support them. This isn't just you and the employee. You have us with you who will be a big part of their journey initially. So I would say within that probationary period, make sure that you're working very closely with the tutor so you can sort of address any barriers. We might be able to help you if there's a performance issue. We might be able to support that learner. We might be able to help teach them something else to really just help them pull the socks up or support them. So although yes, you have that option, please don't just take it, work with us. Obviously the only thing that we'll say is that will change with the new day one employment laws that are coming in. So the 2-year rule will not apply anymore. So which basically from my point of view means that the more you make use of a recruitment company to bring in someone right from day one, really important now, more important than it's ever been, because obviously you've got to get it right. And best will in the world, unless you are a trained recruiter, you may not. And the reality is that that's what we hear time and time again. In the 10 years I've been doing this, we've done the recruitment because we know what questions to ask for, to find what's hidden between the lines, the barriers that will pop up, that we know that will be the barriers between month 1 and 6, especially when it comes to a young people or an apprenticeship. And they're the key ones. A lot of them at this age will go, yes, I want to do it, and they'll just wax lyrical about their ability. But until the guys go, well, actually, how are you going to get there? Show me exactly how you're going to get there. Show me the bus route. What time are you going to have to do that? And all of a sudden, all the cracks start to appear, and the reality changes very, very quickly. So our job is to absolutely minimize the risk for you. So it's a short answer: yes, you can, but please work with us before you decide to make any hasty decisions at the end of it.
Thank you. I've just got one more. So what kind of support is there for the managers? So obviously, taking on an apprentice, they're going to have a manager. What support from Swarm is there to support them guys?
That's a really good question. Over the years, we have hugely recognized the importance of their mentor and their line manager's position. And what we do is we put on significant amount of support, whether it's training, seminars, webinars, one-to-one support for them to develop their own skills or their own sort of help. So it's available. We're not going to just leave them stranded on their own. So yes, all we have to do is just work with them, be honest and say, I've never done this before. Actually, I could do with some help. There's lots that we can do to help. So there are some dedicated things that we've got in our programs that will really support.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. And thanks, Louis, asking those questions. I can't see any others that have come in on the chat or anybody else that's got any questions. So in which case, we'll move on then. In which case, so I'd like to invite now Rachel to join us. I'm just going to share your name slide. So tell me, Rachel, why did you choose to do an apprenticeship?
So I basically had quite a roller coaster of a career. I left school, didn't go to university. I knew that wasn't for me. And I just plunged myself straight into work. I did a variety of hospitality jobs and things, building up my customer service skills and just general life experience. But after about 2 years doing that, I got to a point when I thought, I don't actually have any qualifications to my name. And my parents were sort of saying to me, you're early 20s now, like, what are you actually going to do? And I thought to myself, well, I do quite like talking to people. I really like using social media. I'm really passionate about helping businesses, increase their brand awareness and all this kind of stuff. So I thought, let's do an apprenticeship, and did some research into it. Thought that it was definitely for me. And yeah, I found marketing. Mine was actually a marketing assistant apprenticeship. And the more I found out about it, the more I thought, yeah, this is definitely for me, because the setup was such a structured, sort of safe environment, that if I sort of stumble a little bit or wasn't really sure about what a task was, like how to go about doing it, then I had my tutor right there that was able to help me. I had other support in my company, so it was definitely the best decision for me, and it really made me realize I'm actually really good at a lot of this stuff. But because I'd never thought about marketing before, and I guess no one had ever sort of said about giving me the opportunity. I just never considered it.
Okay, fantastic. And yeah, your tutor Sally obviously is a marketing professional herself, so yeah, I can imagine she has been great support. So what kind of experience did you have on the apprenticeship? You know, the whole thing at work and with us and so on.
So overall, my experience with the apprenticeship was absolutely brilliant. Can't fault it whatsoever. I worked in a company that was very, very diverse. There was a wedding venue, there was some self-catering holiday accommodation, it was a working arable farm. And basically I was the marketing person for all of that. So I would basically try and bring everything under one umbrella. I was doing the social media for the wedding side of the business on their social media, and I was also doing the holiday lets, just, you know, creating all that content. So that was really fun, quite honestly, getting an insight into industries I just don't know anything about. And when it came to the things I was trying to get involved in on the farm, I did some farm tours with the manager. So learning about, well, farming for starters, and, you know, the different crops that they grew and like how they grew it, and just the scale of the operations. That was so fascinating to me. I live in the countryside, but I don't come from a farming family or anything like that. So that really challenged me in a new way. And when I told my tutor that, I've just gone and done this farm tour, she said to me, Rachel, that is just brilliant. Yes, it's not necessarily part of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, but it's really expanding your learning in a different way, and it's challenging you in new ways. And I was just buzzing at the end of it. And she said to me that this is like such a valuable lesson that you've just done, put it in your learning journal, as Chris said. So I don't know how many hours it was, but I feel like that's just an example of something that I did that was really valuable for my apprenticeship. I also did other things like the website updates, blogs, newsletters. I had meetings, like marketing meetings with the directors and my manager. So just learning about stuff like, I know it's really simple, but meeting agendas. Because I'd worked in hospitality, I never had attended a meeting before. So just it's just such the simple things in life. But if you've never been in that environment before, then there's no reason why you would have experienced it. So I guess just learning the office protocols about how to do stuff, and, you know, sending emails to businesses and things like that, that was really great experience for me. And I actually remember having conversations with my tutor Sally, saying to her that, you know, learning how to do this, do you have any advice and stuff? And we would talk about it. And that was another part that it wasn't necessarily included in my learning that I would do on a day-to-day basis, but she was able to offer support to me and give me advice. And again, because it was sort of part of my learning, I was able to include that in my online journal.
Fantastic. That's brilliant, Rachel. You've actually answered a lot of questions I was going to ask you, which is really good. Now, I'd love to hear your passion for marketing and that really good all-round information of what you got involved in. And you really did give an awful lot of business benefit to the company. I know, actually, unfortunately, your role naturally came to an end there. You know, as your apprenticeship finished, that was just the way it was. You know, it does happen. And, you know, but you were so brave to then sort of branch out by yourself, which was amazing. We were all seriously impressed that you had the confidence to do that. So, you know, tell us a little bit about your marketing business that you've been able to create off the back of all of this learning, and, you know, where you want to be in 5 years' time.
So when I was actually doing my job, I was the event manager and coordinator for a farmers market, and I would go around the market and I would basically be continuously creating content to market the next one. In marketing, it's always thinking about what's ahead of you. And I would meet these businesses, and I built up great relationships with all of them, and they would see the content I'd take and they'd say to me, I just don't know how to market myself. I just can't take any photos of my business. Like I barely even know how my camera works on my phone. And I would say to them, oh, but like I wish that I could help you. I wish that there was something I could do for you. But obviously I couldn't, because I was in that full-time job role. And then when I left, I thought, there is so many people that have said this to me, like it's an almost overwhelming amount. And I thought to myself, how much brand awareness do they actually have for their business? And I would look at their social media accounts in my own time, and I would think, okay, I know that I can help these kind of businesses. I know that there's just little tweaks that I can make to just improve their marketing for everything. And basically that's when I started RL Creative Studios, and I started working with some clients straight away. It was sort of a overlap situation that I was bringing one on as I was sort of leaving, which was actually really good because it meant that I wasn't suddenly plunged right into the deep end with nothing as soon as I left. So it was actually really smooth, the transition. So yeah, now I'm working with some clients, boosting their brand awareness online. In terms of where I'd like to be in 5 years' time, I don't know, because every day is so different at the moment, and I'm figuring out my niche and what I'm really good at, and I guess just I'm figuring out a lot at the moment. Things have been quite a roller coaster since September last year, and so yeah, I don't really know, to be honest, but I know that I can definitely see great potential for my business. And yeah, it's brilliant being able to help these businesses and knowing that I'm making such an impact for them.
Yeah, fantastic. Yes, you are. And yeah, I'm pretty sure you will go from strength to strength, Rachel. It's been
Thank
quite
you.
a launch pad for you, hasn't it, all this training? So it's fantastic.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come to Olivia next, and then for the two of you, I think we'll sort of put it to the floor for questions. So if I can just sort of bring Olivia in now, who is also an apprentice, but still working on your apprenticeship, aren't you? And in market research. So we're going to do the same as just sort of a bit of an interview situation. So Olivia, yeah, why did you choose to do an apprenticeship?
Yep. So hi everyone. So I chose to do an apprenticeship because I initially actually went to university. So I was there for probably a few months. Some things happened, and all in all, I didn't feel engaged enough. I had enough of just sitting behind a desk all day and just being sort of spoken at. I really wanted to be like somewhere where I could put my knowledge into action. So yeah, so I wasn't sure the field that I wanted to go into. I just finished my A levels, and I did take sociology as an A level, and that was something that I really enjoyed. And I think the part that I enjoyed the most was the methods and context. So that social research and that going out into the field and collecting this data and analysing it, and it was just something that really interested me, and I did quite well in it. But I actually didn't know that it was as such a job. I didn't know how to get into this area of work. And then I stumbled across IFF Research, where I'm happy to be at today. And I read the job description, or the apprenticeship description, sorry, and it just clicked. It was like that light bulb moment where I thought, wow, like this really sounds like a little bit too good to be true in a sense. So yeah, so I think to answer why I chose to do the apprenticeship is because of that action that you get, and you can really you learn so much, not even just in our like one-to-one sessions and like the actual content, but like what Chris mentioned earlier as well, them soft skills. I think that I've picked up so many soft skills and just improved on them, and I don't think that that's something you can just get just by being in a classroom. I just think being in an office, like we spoke about earlier, like Rachel mentioned, being in that environment, sending emails to external people. Like I remember when I first sent my first progress update to a client, it took me a good 10 minutes just to like hit that send button. So yeah, so it's them bits and bobs that you just don't think about. So yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. And what sort of qualities and behaviours did the organisation expect of you? You mentioned soft skills, but how has the apprenticeship helped you develop those? Not just from obviously the personal development we've been doing, but what did they expect, and what did they push you to do?
So I think that my apprenticeship was the first time my work had offered an apprenticeship. So I I didn't feel that they had huge expectations in terms of like knowledge, and like they wanted me to know everything and, you know, do loads of research before joining to get up to date. I think that all they really wanted and all that they like required of me was that willingness to learn and that ambition and just being eager and just ready to learn. And when I first joined, you know, I had my internal training, and that was great. It covered loads of bases. And I think after that, I've just continued to like proactively try to develop myself and, you know, seek out different opportunities and talk to different members of different teams to be able to work in different areas, and just really just being open and, you know, to not shy away and to not be like, oh, I don't feel confident in that, so I don't want to do it. So yeah, so I didn't feel pressured. I didn't feel like I was nervous, but in a good sort of nerves, you know? Yeah, so all in all, I think that all that they wanted was just me to be there, to be ready, willing to learn, and just almost be like a sponge and just ready to like get it all take it all in.
Brilliant. That's great advice. That's what we say to everybody. That's what you want to come with. Brilliant. Thanks, Olivia. And what kind of work does your organisation give you to do? Obviously, you're in market research. What kind of things?
Yeah, so we are a mixed method research agency. So we do cover both the quantitative and qualitative research methods. So we do lots of different methods. So we do in-depth interviews, we do over the phone interviews, we do focus groups, lots of different things depending on what like the aim of the research is. And we mainly work with the public sector, so government departments, but we do some private work as well. But I think that as an apprentice, I've never felt excluded from any sort of work. You know, there's no avenue or type of research that I can't do. You know, my place of work is always happy to let me try something new, or if there's an area, because I think I've been there nearly 10 months now, so coming up to a year. So I'm sort of at the point now where I've began to develop my own areas of interest, and the sorts of sectors where I find the most interesting. Mm-hmm. And I've been able to sort of talk to my line manager and say, hey, like I've really started to take a liking and an interest to this particular topic or area, you know, could I maybe get a bit more work there? And that's something that they've always accommodated. So yeah, so I honestly can get involved in lots and lots. And I actually don't have a set team. So we have 3 different teams, which is team community, education and economy. But as an apprentice, I float around all the teams, and this is so I can get a taste of all the different sectors and all the different jobs.
Fantastic. And that's because you're willing to learn. That's why they're very happy to open up all those opportunities to you. So, you know, they can see that it's worth investing in you, Olivia, because you're willing and committed. So brilliant. All right. So how does your manager actually support you on a sort of weekly basis? What happens?
Yeah, so I initially had a weekly meeting with my line manager. This recently changed after Christmas. We now have a meeting every 2 weeks. And this we take an hour out of the day, and we will catch up, have a talk about how work is going, you know, how I'm finding my workload, is it manageable? Also with my apprenticeship, you know, am I managing okay there? So just like the general check-ins. And then also we always discuss, like I said earlier, where I'm looking to develop, how I'm feeling, areas that I'd like to focus on a bit more. And my line manager has a very good relationship also with my swarm tutor. You know, they've caught up a couple of times, and recently they spoke about a couple of things where I just mentioned a couple of like questions that I had, and they just spoke and caught up. So yeah, so I feel really supported by both my line manager at work and also my tutor at Swarm. So yeah, so I recently had like our appraisal process and like our reflection process at work. So I sat down with my line manager then, and we had a good discussion about how I want to further develop after my endpoint assessment, and, you know, look into the future and what's going to happen afterwards. So yeah, so that's something that I really like, because it makes me feel really positive that, you know, I feel that they're just as invested in me as what I am, which is really lovely. So yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned your tutor. So Siobhan, I know, you know, is a fantastic market research tutor. How does the work that she's teaching you, that, you know, in your studies, how does that support you in your job role?
Well, yeah, so yeah, the content actually, it links up really well with the stuff that I do day to day. This was slightly more so at the beginning, like the content and the sessions that we had at the beginning, like covering the foundations of market research. So covering them different methods, the quant, the qual, the data. So, you know, them foundations that we knew that we was going to have to build on to like really understand the work that we carry out. And I think learning that and having that was so useful when I then started to be put onto real projects at work, because I felt that I had the context behind it. So I didn't just have a briefing and, you know, told how to do a task, but I also, on top of that, had that time with Siobhan where I'd been taught why we do it, you know, and what the impact of like what we're doing has, you know, and the pros and the cons. And it just really helps, or it helped me weigh up how I wanted to carry tasks out at work, you know, especially for the first time when everyone has their own ways of doing things. So sometimes it's difficult in, you know, a workplace to say, oh, how would I do this? Because, you know, someone else may do it differently. So having that foundation from Swarm was really great for me to be able to build my own ways of working, because like I said, I had that much deeper understanding and I knew the why instead of just the what.
Yes. Brilliant, thank you. And that's the thing is actually, you know, this has really worked well for you, and you can go on to do that. We do the MRS Advanced Certificate. So for everybody listening, some courses have the opportunity to go on to a professional certificate once they've done the apprenticeship, and it sort of it covers half of that, and then they just sort of finish it off with a professional certificate. So for you, Olivia, where this has worked really well, you would be, you know, I dare say, in a position to be able to take advantage of that, you know, if you wanted to carry on. So and that's really good. Thank you very much. That was really interesting for both of you. So I would like to open it to the floor now. If there's any questions anybody would like to ask to apprentices there about their experience, anything that you've got to ask them about. Again, Louis, we've got questions that people have given us in advance. If you want to sort of pose those while everybody else is thinking.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So this is for Rachel. Obviously, Olivia just touched on it, but what support was it sort of from your employer that you received? Was it day to day, or was it, you know, and not necessarily their expertise on the job, but, you know, as Olivia said, the soft skills and that sort of side of it? What support did you receive?
So every week when I had a marketing meeting with my manager, when I first joined, I had an office downstairs with the property manager, and we would check in with each other, I'd say fairly often, multiple times a week. And because we were in a very small office, we would just talk about stuff all the time. So I really felt like I didn't have to build everything up until like that Monday meeting. I could just tell her as and when I had a problem. But then I think it was about just after halfway through my apprenticeship, we had an office switch around and I moved upstairs, and I started working with one of the directors who had some previous marketing experience, and we then had weekly meetings. So I would create an agenda, and if I had any problems regarding my apprenticeship, like I had an assignment I just wanted to talk to him about, or even if I said that I feel like I want to go on another farm tour, for example, and, you know, I've already discussed it with my tutor and she thinks that this would be really valuable and these are the things marketing wise I want to achieve out of it, he would have advised me on, you know, what to do, where to go, all that kind of stuff. I think that there were some examples of when I did something similar to that, but I don't think it was in the context of a farm tour. But We would also have a monthly marketing meeting to talk about the data, and that was sort of my moment to sit down with both the directors and I guess shine a little bit and say that, you know, this is another side to marketing that I don't always do every single week or anything like that, but you know, I'm really understanding how to use data and all that kind of stuff. And they would sometimes say in the meeting that, you know, Rachel, you've done really well with this, like the way you've presented it is really great, and they would challenge me with certain questions, and that, I guess, that kind of interaction made me realize that, oh, my learning, I've got a bit of empty patches there. I need to go back over and look at that. And that would be something openly discussed during the meeting. So it's, yeah, it was a variety, I guess, of techniques, but it's what worked for me, and I think it worked for them as well.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. So Olivia, if I can, oh, sorry, go on.
Louis, just before you continue, I did also want to say something. I know this hasn't been a question discussed, but just going back to what was discussed earlier with the personal development things that Chris had mentioned, I did remember thinking when I was doing my personal development sessions once a month, there was a surprising amount actually, that I don't remember ever being covered during my time at school. And I did A-levels all in the same school. And I was there like right from about 7 years old. And when I was doing these sessions, and I remember thinking, why do I not know this? Like, this is unbelievable. I never remember this being covered in GCSE or just even in a PSHE lesson when I was like 10 years old or something. So I really think that if there are any businesses or young people or whoever that's considering doing an apprenticeship or taking somebody on, you just never know if there's gaps in key parts of life that they just need to know. They need to know this knowledge. And I feel like now that I do know certain things that were discussed in personal development sessions, I'm a lot more aware of another part of life that I would never normally know about.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. That's obviously we get feedback similar to that every sort of after every session.
Yeah.
So it's a really good point to make. So yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so Olivia, if I can bring you in now, just on the back of obviously your discussion just now, how do you go about balancing the study time with, you know, on the job practical side of the role, as well as obviously your apprenticeship itself?
Yeah, so for me, I think, well, I count myself really lucky that my work made it really clear to everyone else that I do have a study day. So that was the way that I decided to sort of format it and sort of work best for me. When I first started out on my apprenticeship, I didn't have like a designated day where I would do studying. But as that, workflow became more steady and then also becoming busier at work, it can be really easy to let them off the job hours sort of fall behind. And, that's one thing that I would say to other apprentices is, just really keep on top of that, and because it's much easier to keep it consistent than it is to build it back up. So that's the way I do it. And I chose to do it on a Friday. So people at work know that on a Friday, I'm still there and I'm about if anyone needs to contact me. But for the majority of the day, I will be studying like on my studies, and that will be my focus. Everyone's really respectful of that. So just making it clear that just to respect that time, because it is as important as the work that I do for IFF, because obviously it's about my development and my learning. And if I don't spend that time doing that, I'm not going to progress. So I think just setting them boundaries to say, I need this time, we're allowed this time. So just guard that and just do, how could I word it? Do keep on top of it, I think would be my best advice.
I definitely agree with you, Olivia. Like Sally would always tell me the same, that there's so many apprentices that have been and gone that if they didn't keep on top of their off-the-job learning, then it would literally just spiral. And then it's just such a insurmountable amount of work that you just don't even want to touch it.
Yeah, 100%. And so much can class as off the job hours as well. You know, it's not just the Friday that I do most of my studies. I don't just put Friday 6 hours. You know, there's so much throughout the week that also classifies as off the job. You know, and I'm sure that Siobhan has probably mentioned, but for the first sort of few months, there were so many times when I'd pop Siobhan an email to say, "Hey Siobhan, does this classes off the job hours?" And she'd be like, most of the time, you know, yes, it does, because it's not just having a session with Swarm, it's doing something for the first time and learning skills. You know, that's really what it's about. So yeah.
I would do the same with my tutor as well. I was constantly saying to her, like, "Oh, I just did this," and she'd be like, "Rachel, you should put that in your learning journal." I'm like, "Really?" And she's like, "Yes, that's definitely like off the job learning." And I just didn't realize the full value that I just had from an experience until I spoke about it with her.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. That's really helpful, both of you. Thank you, and thank you for adding things there where you thought actually that'd be really interesting, because it's really helpful to hear your point of view and your experience. I'd like to move on. We might have time at the end for extra questions if there's anything else. I haven't got anything on the chat at the moment if anybody else wants to ask anything. So I'd like to bring Martin Morrell in now. Are you there, Martin? I can't quite see you, but
yeah, I'm here. Managed to make it.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Yeah, as I said, so Martin works for Anglian Home Improvements, is the lead on learning development there. So we're going to hear from Martin now in terms of his experience in using apprenticeships a lot for the business and how it's worked. So we're going to do another sort of interview situation here as well. Okay, so yeah, Martin, how did Anglian Home Improvements first get involved in employing apprentices for the business, and what range of apprenticeship subjects and roles do you offer?
I think that Anglian have always been, I've been here 3 years, but I'm a sort of poacher turned gamekeeper, if you will, as I used to work for training providers as well as working for employers. So I've helped develop apprenticeships as well as deliver them, and obviously now it's more on the way of supporting the business. Now, obviously, the apprenticeship levy got introduced in 2017. There were apprenticeships done prior to that. However, at the moment, we're standing at something like we've had 350 apprentices through our books over the past 5 years, really. Well, no more than that now, isn't it? 8 years. You know, currently standing at 46 apprentices in a variety of various apprenticeships. When I first started here, I thought that I'd be looking after sales teams and installers. How wrong was I? We've got 30 different occupational standards that are being delivered within the company. Some of those, of course, by Swarm training, like you know, the events organizer, which sounds weird for a company like ourselves, but we do events, and also, you know, the bulk standard business admin, team leader, and that sort of thing. So we're, you know, as a company, we're fully behind apprenticeships. We've, as I said, we've got 46 at the moment, but we're recruiting another 9 installer apprentices. So that's the people who fit the windows. And we're going to be looking at another 6 in our factory units. So, you know, because not only do we fit them, but we make the windows as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so a real range there you've got.
You could say that, yeah.
Brilliant. So yeah, it's great that Anglian Home Improvements do take on so many, and it's been a privilege, as you mentioned, that Swarm Training has been able to train some of those. Can you give some pointers on how you went about finding and recruiting your apprentices?
Okay. Well, as when I managed to join, sorry for being late, everybody, but I do another meeting as well this morning. I've been popular for some reason. We've got our own recruitment team within the company anyway, because of the size of the organisation. But also we use DAS, the Digital Apprenticeship Scheme, and advertise on there, and then work very closely with Apprenticeships Norfolk. to make sure that we're able to, promote apprenticeships as many places as we possibly can. A lot of our apprentices do tend to be people who we recruit as an employee and then put them through an apprenticeship after 6 months. I know she said about probationary period, but these people are actually employed, and if they want to do so, then they can be enrolled onto an apprenticeship program. I've got a person doing a level 4 SEMA qualification starting in next month, funnily enough, who got employed by us, and we've got a person who started just before Christmas who will be able to be joining us, who is an insurance broker, and we're going to be getting her through the level 3 insurance qualification as well. So basically we're there to promote apprenticeships internally, which is part of the reason why I had to be delayed this morning, but also externally. As I said, we're going to be recruiting installers, and we're going to be recruiting fabricators, which is the title of the apprenticeship. We have got a procurement one that we're recruiting for at the moment as well. So it's quite a mixed bag there, but also a lot of opportunities for people. And I'm hoping that, given the success that we have had with apprentices, we've had 17 people achieve last year, 11 of those with distinction. We've just had another person who let me know just now, who's not on a first but a second apprenticeship, who just got a distinction for HR level 3. So we love celebrating success, we love encouraging people, and we love making sure that they're given the time and support, which is what you were talking about earlier, to ensure they can complete their qualifications.
Fantastic, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, we've always heard really good things about how supportive you are as an employer, with the apprentices. But, that leads on to the next question, actually, is can you talk us through how you and your line managers have enabled apprentices to get the opportunities to practice if they need to whilst on the job?
When I started 3 years ago, there were 3 apprentices who basically weren't being given the right exposure. So like, one of them was doing a chartered surveyor qualification. He was working in our living spaces team, which basically does conservatories. Well, the scope of that isn't enough. So therefore what we were able to do is negotiate with the line manager to go to another part of our business for a little bit of job release, if you will, so they can get more experience on the chartered surveying side of things. And also I maintain regular contact with all the managers to make sure, and in fact, this goes right up to senior leadership team level.
Okay.
So we're able to say, right, we've got apprenticeships, we want to get these moving forward. And we try and we basically maintain constant reporting, either via the one file account which you use, so I'm able to update the line managers that way, but also, pop down in some cases, or do a remote call like I did just before this meeting with the regions and say, right, how's so and so going, what's the progress so far, are there any issues? And obviously, like yourselves as a provider, you let me know if there's any issues as well, and then we try and nip it in the bud and make sure any issues like not being allowed time to do the qualification are resolved.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And it really is the difference, having that support. It just makes such a difference. So especially, I'm going to ask you about now sort of younger apprentices. So obviously apprentices can come on from 16, they're not necessarily, but when they are very young, those who have been with you, they've really sort of not just coped, but they've flourished, probably because of that sort of support that you give them. But how do you particularly, for young apprentices, help them make such a smooth transition from like a school environment, which is what they used to, into the working world?
Well, we're obviously very mindful of that fact, because obviously a person's coming straight from school, they've been in the world of work. And in fact, we've got a really good example of that. We've got Kieran, who hopefully will be spread across the Eastern Daily Press after Wednesday night's award ceremony. Is the award winner, hopefully, fingers crossed. But he joined us at 16. Now, he's an intelligent lad. He could have done lots of career paths, but he wanted to do something that to develop himself. Now he's 16 years old. Having a young person around in the factory isn't a bad prospect as people would imagine, because everybody's got a daughter, a son, a cousin, or whatever who's a younger person. So therefore, they can, if they can see they're having a bit of an issue, they can have a chat with them. Our HR team are brilliant as well. We've got a young person's risk assessment for everything that we do, and obviously safeguardings in place to make sure that everybody knows that don't treat them as somebody who's different because they were an employee with you, but make sure you're minding in some cases the more colourful language around them until they get more embedded in the teams. But we try and support young people in this business, and in fact Kieran, the lad I'm talking about, he turned 17 in July last year. He's completed an 18-month apprenticeship in 13 months. He got a distinction, and he's also the youngest person in the country to achieve the fenestration fabrication qualification as well. So he has thrived. Younger people in the business, we have had young installers, which is obviously a different kettle of fish because they're actually out there installing windows and doors. But we make sure that the senior operations managers put them with the right mentors. So again, although it's one-to-one, it's still something they know that that individual will respect that person, not use them as an extra pair of hands, but to help them develop along the way, and also again support them as a young person.
Yeah, brilliant. And that's what I'm always trying to get across to people, is that it's not just a sort of cheap labor, extra pair of hands kind of thing. Oh, it's like we're supporting work experience. Actually, these guys deliver proper real benefits to the business and real impact. Have you got any sort of stories, anything that you can share in terms of what benefits, impacts, any numbers, I don't know, just off the top of your head, in terms of what an apprentice has done for the business and how they've really made impact?
The person I spoke about earlier, who I've just discovered got a distinction on the 27th of January, they are hot off the press. She came into us as an administrator in the learning and development team. She'd always had an inkling to want to go into HR. She completed her business admin level 3 in record time again. We supported her through that. She then transferred almost immediately, and got a distinction, and then transferred almost immediately to the HR role, which she was successful in applying for. And then, as I said, a year and a half ago, just under, she started a HR level 3 apprenticeship. And the work that she was doing around the business admin role, the works that she was doing about the HR, have all added value to what we can do. Second set of eyes on everything, and more importantly, a new set of eyes that hasn't got preconceived ideas of how a business works.
Yeah, indeed.
And in fact, Kieran, I keep talking about him, but he is a star, bless him. He's now on, although he's only 17, and although he's only been with us for a year and a half, he's actually shone through insofar as there's little projects for new pieces of equipment that we've got in because of our growing size and the fact that we haven't to do new projects. He works in what's called the shapes team, which is like shapes, so you got your normal rectangular or square windows. He does the bends, as it were.
Okay.
And in fact, the classic quote from when we were doing his apprenticeship, well, what do you do, Kieran? I bend stuff. not exactly what but and we quoted that the other day. But I mean, so he's actually adding value because he's a fresh set of eyes. A lot of the people haven't used that equipment before. He's there as a project with the manager to actually do the hot air bending and actually look at processes and procedures so that it's safe and so that other people in the teams can understand how they work.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what people miss is that fresh pair of eyes. Not
Yeah.
we've always done it this way. It
Yeah.
brings real new ideas, and yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. So from all your many years experience, Martin, what would you sort of leave people with in terms of if it's a business here who is thinking about employing an apprentice, what would you say or suggest to help them in terms of taking the next steps and how to manage things going forward?
I would definitely encourage people to take apprenticeships. It's been my life for the past, I shan't say how many years, but it's over quite a lot. I mean, I used to work for the Construction Industry Training Board, looking after, as a youth training assistant, looking after apprentices in Norfolk. The demolition sector, developed apprenticeships for them. It's all things like that. So it's been a wide and varied career path that I've had, but it's always focused on apprentices.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of the people who I know, in fact, I met somebody on Saturday who was one of my apprentices as a carpenter and joiner in Dereham many years ago. And he said, "Oh, you're still about then?" But the fact is, he still continued that career. He's still doing, and it's seeing that progression. And I think on top of that, it makes sense for a company, no matter what size. I mean, fair enough, we're a large company, we're an apprenticeship levy paying company, but regardless of that, I think we would still be doing it because of the fact that you need to have succession planning in your business.
Yes, indeed.
You look at us as a company, in our factories, we've got, I know this sounds a bit, 2,500 years experience. It's true though. A lot of people. There was somebody retired the other month, just before Christmas. 47 years of experience in the company.
Yeah.
How do you replace that?
Yeah.
It's succession planning, and it's getting the ideas into the business. So, 100% apprenticeships all the way.
Brilliant. Thank you, Martin. That's really helpful, really interesting. Louis, do we have any questions? Again, I'd like to put it to the floor. If you've got any questions for Martin, please just type in the chat or speak out. Feel free to. Louis, is there anything we've got for Martin that we've had come in advance?
I'll just read Chris's one out he put in the chat about the oil fenestration apprentices, Martin. Do they attend college or are they only on site?
They're only on site, but they have a day a week with the provider that we use, like glass and fenestration training solutions, and they go through a series of workbooks with experienced people. They have visits from the site tutors, and we give them all tablets as well, so they're not, the tablets for we don't try and calm them down. It's basically a tablet so they can work on site, they can create evidence for their portfolio. And yeah, there aren't any colleges that we would endorse like we do with the provider we've got at the moment.
Okay,
yeah,
cool. Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. So yeah, one question that I've actually just sort of thought of. So employers, they often sort of worry about taking on an apprentice, taking on an untrained employee to invest in, just purely because it's a drain on their time. And obviously when they finish their apprenticeship, there's no guarantee they'll stay. But if an employer has that concern, which I'm sure that many do, what would you sort of say to that? How would you respond to that?
Well, having worked with apprentices for a couple of years now, many years, it's always been that same thing. Why should we take somebody? They're inexperienced. Well, everybody had to learn some stage. Someone had to get that knowledge to do what they do. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing anything, if that makes sense. And as far as at the end of the day, if we train them, they might leave. Well, the thing is, whilst they're with you and they're learning, you're still going to get benefits from them. As I said there with Suzanne, it's basically the fact that a person can help the business. They've got a new set of eyes. They can help you. And the two apprentices that were speaking earlier, Rachel and Olivia, same sort of thing. They've brought something to the table after they've got the basic training out of the way to develop the companies that they're with. And Rachel's setting up her own business as well. So fair play. And it shows what a benefit an apprenticeship can be, not just for a company, but also an individual.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. And just last one, I suppose, again, we have briefly touched on, I know you sort of take on employees and then give them the opportunity to upskill using apprenticeship.
Yep.
Do you feel like as an employer, you have to guarantee an apprentice a job after they finish, whether it is a new recruit or someone who's been there a while?
We don't feel we want to, because obviously if they've been there a while, then even the guys who, we're a large company, but we don't employ installers. The only employed installers are apprentices. But at the end of the program, we don't get rid of them. We offer the opportunity to become self-employed in the company, take up another role, such as a service engineer who goes out and, on the rare occasion when a window's got a problem or a door, then they'll go and repair that. And also other options that are available throughout the company. But we for instance, Kieran, drop his name again, he's got a job, as has a colleague who was also with him on the same apprenticeship. They both got jobs out of that. They're now line operators, and obviously people who are under the probationary period thing anyway, and then go on and get an apprenticeship, that they'd still have the job even if they dropped out of the apprenticeship, because occasionally that does happen. It's not right for them. The capacity in the role that they're in won't allow them to do it. Obviously, we do try and mitigate that and try and enable them to do an apprenticeship fully. But there are some times when you've got some teams who are really super busy at certain times of the year, like our contact centre, which I know we deal a great deal with you. Last month, it was really difficult for apprentices to arrange meetings with you guys. But it's one of those sort of things, and you guys were able to be there to actually support us with that and be very understanding, because you understood the situation we're in. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you. Martin, I've just got one actually here, which I think is ideal because I know you guys have got involved in this. Has Anglian got involved in the transfer levy scheme to help other businesses fund training? And if so, how has that worked for you?
Oh, well, I mean, just a little bit. I think we've done over £124,000 so far.
Wow.
Some of it through Apprenticeships Norfolk, Peterborough Council. We get involved with those because one of our sister companies, Anglian Building Products, does work for social housing and things like that. So what we do as part of the arrangements with any company, we'll say that we will donate levy, or gift levy as we call it, or transfer levy, to companies who are charities or charitable institutions. Mm-hmm. So for instance, locally we've supported the YMCA. We've got one at the moment where a person's actually doing I think it's called LEV or something like that. It's an events organisation, okay, that support disadvantaged adults or young people and get them into entertainment. This lad's LEV, and I think it's live entertainment venue lighting and something like that he's doing as part of an apprenticeship program. And we've done that. We've got another one which is with a charity, a care charity, who's doing a youth work because it deals with young people. So he's youth work level 7 qualification, and we've got another one. We've got another 2 people doing a senior people professional, which are obviously not cheap for anybody to go through, but it's really good for us to actually go, right, here you are. We can help you with that. And I think, I keep regular contact with them as well. So, I think at the moment I've got 10 apprentices that we're funding, but we're going to be taking another 1 or 2 on in the near future as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Martin. Yeah. There's one last question actually, it's just popped up in the chat, which you're just going to have time to do. Louis, do you want to do that one from Chris?
Yeah, of course. So, Martin, obviously you work with a few training providers and have done. What's important to look for when you're picking a provider, and what do you think a good one looks like?
There were 3 C's that I had, but I can't ever remember the third one. But the 2 that are most important for me, and obviously working with you, Louis and Amy, it's communication and collaboration, that we can work together, that we can communicate effectively so that I know the progress of our apprentices, regardless of the one file accounts, because I know sometimes information on there doesn't, the electronic portfolio doesn't always get there in time, but it's the way that you deal with us, the way that you onboard, and the same thing goes for the providers. A provider that we were using, we no longer use their services because the service that we were getting wasn't to the level that we wanted. But giving you guys a star rating, I would say that you're in the, you'll be able to get your badge with 5 stars on there from us anyway.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, well, that's brought us right to the end. Thank you so much to everybody who's been on our panel. Thank you for everybody who's been here listening in. If you think of questions after you've gone, please, you can let us know. You'll find us on LinkedIn. We're Swarm Training. Please just follow us and connect with us. You can message us with any questions that you have. But also, actually, we will send out a summary of today by email with guidance on what to do next if you are interested in taking advantage of the apprenticeship system. And obviously, and that will come from Louis, so you'll be able to sort of email back if there's anything you want to ask, and to get in touch, and he can talk you through anything which is specific to your business. Okay, so that's what we'll do next. Look out for that coming. But for today, that is it. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a good rest of the day.